What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are going to be doing several things in this video, and some of them I'm not even sure, but we're trying to get to that end goal of ultimately getting this truck on the road and driving. So what I am going to be doing immediately, or at least in this first part, will be rewiring the electric fans on the truck. So at the end of the last video, off camera, we were doing some tuning and trying to get the truck to idle a little better. And we had the truck up to temperature, noticed that the fans weren't kicking on. We did have them activated, but they weren't kicking on. Turns out I wired them incorrectly. So we have two pins coming from the CPU, or not CPU, but ECP, or the computer. We'll just say computer on the truck. And those are going to be the control wires to turn the fans on. So I have two relays, one for each fan, and those control wires are going to those relays as what will activate the fans. Well, it turns out I was incorrect on my wiring. The pins don't activate by supplying 12 volt voltage or any voltage at all. They actually provide a ground. So what I need to do is swap out some wires and get it to where those are on the ground portion of the relay, and then have the power and the switching power set as just constant power, and then whenever the ground connects or is activated by the computer, then that will turn on the relay and allow the fans to go and turn on. Or at least that's how it's supposed to be in theory, but that is how I'm going to redo the wiring. So I'm going to have everything put together like that. I'm going to go ahead and do it real quick, and hopefully we have some fans running, because then we can actually start doing more tuning and, you know, drive the truck, data log, etc., without having to worry about the truck overheat. Or, you know, that's in theory, as long as everything goes. Another item that I'm hoping that we get done in this video is getting the exhaust finished up. That would be something that is beneficial to getting this truck on the road as well, because currently it's going from the Y pipe and there is no muffler. So not like the muffler is going to bring down the sound that much, but it will help just for, you know, driving around the neighborhood and etc., you know. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the wiring. And just to show y'all the differences between the two setups, the setup on the left is how I previously had this setup, and the setup on the right, or diagram on the right, is what I am going to be changing it to. So on the left, you can see this is our relay. Here are our 4 pins that are being used. We have the battery power going to a fuse, and that fuse is going to the input power fuse, or pin number 30 on the relay. Our control wire from the ECU is going to pin 85 on the relay, which is what controls the switching. Our ground is going to 86, and then our output power is 87, and that is going to our fan. Now, the change that we need to make is our control wire is our ground. So our control wire is now going to go to 86 on the relay. Our battery power will go into a fuse, and then that will branch off into our input power number 30, and it will also go into our switching power 85. And then our output is the same at 87. So for a relay to work, you need to have both a input power and you need a ground, and that will cause the switch to close, and that will let your power go to your output. So without either a power or without a ground, your switch will remain open and your power will not flow from your battery to your fan. So in theory, if our control wire is the ground, that means when it's not being used or not wanting to be on, this will not be a ground. But when the computer's like, hey, we have reached the temperature we need to, then the control wire will turn into a ground, thus completing this circuit and allowing power to go to our fan. Or that's how it should be in theory. So I'm going to try it out and see if it works. In my head, all of this makes sense, and I'm hoping that it will work, but we will find out. I hope this explained where I started and where I'm going to, and is just helpful for anyone trying to figure out what I am doing here with this fan wiring. So I would also suggest that y'all keep sketches of what you're doing, so you know in the future if you do end up making a mistake like I did, you know where to start and how to get where you need to go. Also, on the fuse block side of things, write down what everything's being utilized for. This will help you tremendously when you're trying to troubleshoot in the future. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get back to working on the wiring. Okay, as y'all can see, it is a completely another day. It's actually been a little bit of time since I last worked on the truck. That is due to what I discovered. So, just as a little recap, what we discovered before was that the two wires coming from the ECU, we found out those are ground. I had it to where those were voltages, and that does not work if it's actually giving off a ground. So we did test it with the multimeter and figured that out. Thus, I needed to go back and rewire the relays on the relay fuse box. Well, there was an issue with that, and that would be that the relay fuse box is bust on the power and ground side. So the power side of the fuse portion, and then the ground side of the relay portion, which means I cannot put an individual ground wire to that relay. All of it's grounded to one stud, and then that stud goes to a ground on the truck. Thus it's not going to work. I can't use that relay fuse box. So what that meant is I had to order a new one. So I ordered a new one, and I'll show you all the differences once I get this one out. But what that means is I need to take this one out, de-pin everything, make sure I take very good notes on what everything is, or at least, I'm going to go in and put painter's tape on, labeling everything. Then I will have to go back and repin the new relay fuse block with all the fuses and all of the relay pins. So that would be, I think, 4 or 5 fuses and 3 relays. And 4 wires per relay now instead of just 3, and I'm also going to have to run new grounds to the relays that don't need new grounds, or to the relays that just needed a regular ground. So I'm going to have quite a bit of work to do to get this thing wired up the correct way. But like I said, I'll show you all the differences once I get that done. Once I get the old relay fuse block pulled out, I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, and then I'll walk over the differences, the similarities, and yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing pulled out. Alright, as y'all saw, I have taken the fuse relay box off, and I have all my wires loose here. They're all labeled so I know where they're going to be going, and I just wanted to keep track of everything. So now I'm going to go ahead and explain to y'all the difference between the fuse blocks. Okay, y'all can see right here are the 2 fuse blocks I have. This one is the old one that I was using, so the reason that this would not work is due to the fact that if we turn this over, it has 2 studs on the bottom. This is the fuse side, this is the relay side. You can see this stud makes it to where there's no connection points on the fuses on this left side, which will be the right side when I flip it over. So all these pins right here, they are fixed to this relay block, fuse relay block. And this is because this is a power bus bar. So because it's a power bus bar, that means once you provide power from your battery, your power source, etc., it will provide power to here, and then you can add in wires into each spot for everything you want fused power for. So you can see completely through here, you'll add your pin with your wire, and that will allow for you to put a fuse in, and then you will have power. All of the portions here that you can see through are also options for your relay block. So you have your power for your relay, which I just run a U from my fuse to here. This is your control for your relay, and this is your output. Now you'll notice a relay, you usually have 4 connection points. Like I said, the first 3 would be input power, your control wire, and your output wire. Now that 4th one is a ground. Well, you'll notice there's a block missing on each one of these, and that is the, well, You won't notice that on this side. What you'll notice is there's a pin already on each one of these, and that one pin is for your ground. So that's what the stud's here for. It's to give you grounds for all your relays. Now the problem with that I have found is the ECU control wiring is a ground. It's not a power like I initially thought. So I put it into the connection point on the relay that the, switched power is supposed to be in. But if it's a ground, it's not going to switch it, thus we're going to have an issue. And all of this is ground power, or all of this is bust ground, which means you can't put a control ground wire in this relay block, which is a problem in my case. So I can't use this. Unfortunately, this relay block is worthless to me at this point in time because I can't use it. And in case y'all are wondering what all these little green things are, they're just plugs to seal the fuse block from moisture getting in. So I'll go ahead and bring this up close. This is the part number for this fuse block with the 2 buses on it. So 15305 TAC 2. The new fuse block is 15305 TAC 5. So the only difference between these two is there's one stud on the back. And you'll notice I have washers here. That was because the eyelet's a little bit bigger on the power wire than I would like. I'd like to make sure that it's making contact all the way through. So threw some washers in there just to give it a little bit extra surface area. But same thing on the fuse side. It's bust power because your fuses will always need power, and it's easier just to have one power wire going in than an individual power wire going in for each spot. I don't need anything different. But on the relay side, you notice we have all the pins, or all the places to put pins. There's no stud, so I can put individual ground wires on every single relay, which is useful. And here's the difference between the two. Don't mind the plugs, but literally the same thing, same form factor. Everything is exactly the same, except there is no bust ground on this relay block to your left. And from the front, look exactly the same. As I said, the mounting hardware is identical, so this one right here should work perfectly for me. It also has other ports on here for other options on your relay block, but I don't use those, so it doesn't really affect me. I'm just gonna have to put more plugs in this one. But yeah, so I'm using these Eden fuse blocks. I like the size, I like how easy it is to integrate, and they just work good for me. But this is the one we'll be using. Also, in case y'all are wondering, here are the pins that are being used, that are being crimped onto my wires. Here is the part numbers. You can see this is for 18 to 16 gauge wire, but it seems to be working well for me. It's what allows you to plug straight into the back here. Along with that, you are going to need these seals. These seals go onto the wire first. You then insert them into the edge of one of these pins here, so they have, like this one, if this is in focus, it has a semicircle here with 2 flanges coming out. You'll insert the end of the seal into that, crimp your wire, crimp your connector to the wire, and then you'll crimp the seal to the connector. I'll show you, I'll throw in a picture of what it should look like, and it just creates a seal for your wire so moisture won't get in. The seal part number is right here for 22 to 20 gauge wire. You could probably put this on bigger wires and not run into an issue. The holes are just a little smaller, but I don't have an issue with it. And then the plugs are this part number that you see here, and that, like I said before, is just to seal off the fuse block. So yeah, now that I have all my materials together, I'm going to go ahead and start rewiring and getting everything sorted out. I'll probably go in and do some planning on how I'm going to redo the powers, at least the switching power. It's not going to be hard, I just got to get that figured out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of, and then start putting everything back together and rewiring it up. As you can tell, it is now the next day. I figured out the wiring overnight, how I'm going to run those new powers for the fans to go to the controls. I'm actually just going to use another fused wire from the fuse section and come it over and bring it into that control spot. I wasn't really wanting to do that just because it's going to use 2 more spots out of my 10 spots for the fuses, but I'm still going to have 3 spots left over as of this moment, and I don't foresee myself using all of those right now, so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and use 2 spots and I'll have 3 left over. It is hot. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fan back on, and I'm going to start wiring everything up and getting this taken care of. Let's do it. As y'all just saw, I finished up wiring and getting everything put together for the relay fuse box. I have all the connections hooked up, I have all the fuses in, relays in, the additional ground I hooked up is on that bus bar, and everything is good to go. So next thing's next, we're going to provide power to it. I won't be able to test the fans tonight because my dad is not here. He's on a trip right now. He's the one that knows how to get the fans to turn on in HP tuners. I'm sure it's not hard, but I don't want to bother him if I have any questions or anything. So yeah, I'm just going to wait until he gets back. But I did test the demon eyes on it. The demon eyes do turn on. So that's a good indication that I wired everything up correctly. But the real thing is when we actually go to test the fans. If the fans actually work, then we are in business. If not, then I'm going to have to do some more troubleshooting.
The next day.
Ready? Mm-hmm. That's the left one. And there's the right one. Alright, fans are good. So y'all just saw, we got the electric fans working. I did do one small wiring error on the fuse block, but I was able to swap 2 wires on the relay and fixed it, so the fans are working. And it is true, the signals from the computer for the electric fans are grounds, not power. So that has been confirmed now. You know, you don't know until you try it, and now that I've done it, I know that it is to be true, so we are good on that. This truck is almost ready to roll. We gotta we gotta figure out what's wrong with the brakes still, because those are still squishy. I think we're gonna try bleeding them again and seeing if we can, you know, if that will resolve our issue. We gotta finish the exhaust on it.
Many hours later.
Alright guys, as y'all can see, we have the muffler installed. So we welded in the V-band clamps, front and rear, extended the Y-pipe out, and we are getting ready to start the truck for the first time with this muffler on. Before then, we've really just been doing it from here. We didn't have anything past this Y-pipe. Now, I don't think I've told y'all, and let me see if I can get the camera oriented, but I am using a Borla ATAK muffler. That is what I decided to go with. I decided it because I was listening to videos with it behind a 5.3. Not exactly the same setup as my engine as far as cam heads and everything go, but I like the way it sounded, and I'm hoping I like the way it sounds now with my setup. So getting ready to start it for the first time with this in.
not that much quieter.
I said it wouldn't be that much quieter. And now it sounds more raspy almost, don't you think?
Yeah, and it'll sound better once you get a little pipe sticking out the side, get a little more behind the muffler.
Alright, as y'all saw, we got the truck fired up in the last clip. That was the first time we had it fired up with the muffler installed. Now, the exhaust isn't finished. We are still planning on having it come out the side, and we are going to be finishing that up today. Other than that, we might get the brakes figured out as well. And who knows, we might be able to start test driving to get some data logging going for tuning the truck. So we'll just have to see where it ends up, but we are going to continue with finishing up the exhaust. And there we go, we got our circle cut into the bed of the truck. It is not a perfect circle because I did do hand grinding there at the end, but it will work for what we need right now. Eventually we plan on making a cover plate anyway that will cover this up and just, make it look better than what it is currently with the exhaust coming out of it. This is about 3.5 inches in diameter. The exhaust is 3 inches, so it gives us about a 1/4 inch all the way around for it to sit. So yeah, that's where we're sitting at now. Alright, my dad is holding the last piece of the exhaust that he just finished welding up. Need to let it cool down because right there is the last piece of welding we just did, and it is very hot. That's why he's holding it on the ends. But last piece, that will go to the end of the muffler, and this end will be sticking out the side of the truck. So all's looking good. Gonna let it cool down and then we'll put it on. Alright, so exhaust is pretty much installed. We just got to tighten the V-band down, but other than that, there it is. We do plan on cutting the pipe a little bit more so that it's a little closer and flush with the truck. It's a little much, but for now, for test driving and working on the tuning, this will work. So that's what it's looking like now. We do plan on making a plate to go around and, kind of touch that up and make it look a little better, but until we do that or have access to the equipment that we want to use to do that, it's just going to stay like this. I mean, it's not going to hurt it, so that's just a cosmetic issue, and we'll fix that later. Alright guys, as y'all saw, we got the truck running with the new exhaust in. It sounds good. We took it out and went down the road and back. Still got to work on the tuning, but truck's pretty much done. Brakes are still bad. We have to figure out those brakes. We bled them before we left again, and pedal is still to the floor, unfortunately, so we still got to figure that out. But I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. The truck is where it needs to be. Only two things left are brakes, tuning. Once we have those two figured out, then the truck will be ready to go. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.